All right, nothing to it but to push the button, and I just pushed the button. This is Yolanda coming to you, meeting you where you are. So, but listen, I'm going to ask you to meet me somewhere. Let's get this started, okay? These are my first thoughts of the morning. 48 hours after eating all that cheese, so bear with me because, woo, it's coming. But also, one eye open, frog in the throat, blank page in the journal, looking at the calendar, trying to figure out where are we going. We already know where we came from. We keep great tabs on where we've been, because it's all about where we're going. And so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk ourselves out of bed. We're going to talk ourselves. Some of you may have already started your day. You might want to hang around and get a little bit of clarity on that. I'm going to open this up as we have launched to a couple of places here. So I'm going to look for your notifications there. I'm going to check a couple of sources here. I always got to make sure you hit the right buttons. I mean, somebody who doesn't stop, stop and get direction before you go the wrong way too far, too long. Who's that person? Who's that person? It's like, you still doing that the wrong way, the long way, going to, I will tell you, let me tell y'all a story. One time, oh no, not one time. Um, Being that I've been around technology for a long time, hold on. Oh, turn that down. Okay. Being that I've been around technology for a long time, oftentimes, and it's the same way if you've been on a particular job for a long time and then you want to go and you want to change jobs, get a new job, go do something else. And then you realize in the process, things have changed. How many times have you got your resume out there and it says you know how to do all of this stuff. And then you go on the interview and they start talking a different language and they start talking about, yeah, we used to use that one and you have not done what you needed to do to catch up with your skills. So let me tell y'all, if you are, and you know this because you're already looking at some of the job descriptions and they want version this or language that or these kind of hours, you're like, wait, who works those kind of hours? Well, work in itself has changed. It's different. It looks different. Okay, you've been comfortable. That's the thing. We have been comfortable and trying to stay comfortable. Don't want to get uncomfortable. And there's a lot that goes on in our world right now that makes us hella uncomfortable. And some of us get to the point we can't get out of bed because of said uncomfortability. Okay, so I'm opening up here a couple of pages here because I want to kind of just watch because I know some of you are having to go to the other platform. Listen, and that's the thing too. If you are not updating your apps, because I know this week I had got all kind of notifications that apps were changing and needing to be updated over and over. It was so many. I'm like, okay, did everything change overnight? Because I update mine manually, but I get a notification to do it. And a lot of times, if you're frustrated with how an app is working or not working, lack thereof, you go look and you see that there's an update, and you're like, oh, do I want the new? Do I want? Is it going to change up the way I do things? Is it going to change up my productivity? Because I like to come in, like, say, for instance, just now, I came in and I went live, right? And everything functioned the way it did the day before. I put my title in and I just pushed the button and it went where I thought it was going to go and I landed here and there. But there are days when I come and I'm thinking I go to do that first step and it's like, oh no, that's changed. Let me tell you, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what word I want. Do I want to write down change or do I want to write down comfortable? I think I'm gonna write down change. Now I know that word has so much connotation there because politicians have grabbed it and it's quite a buzzword at this point, right? But sometimes change can mean doing the same. Sometimes we and Angela and I have been talking about this force of change on the Becoming Michelle Obama podcast. And by change, I want to talk about, as I go through this, as we work through this, I want to talk about us being or becoming a force to try to change things back. Because a lot of times we do that. We don't let stuff progress. We don't let things advance forward as they do. And I hear that a lot because I have worked in community organizing. I have volunteered in community organizing. I have been around advocates and people who advocate for different things all my life. And even now in this conversation of affordability, which is a national discussion to a hyper-local, you always hear all politics are local, but it's a national, it's really a global discussion. And people are trying to keep up nationally. People are trying to keep up with global perspectives, and then hyper local, all the way to hyper local. You see how it's affected your community, where everything around us is trying to change because certain things were put in place because they were profitable to some, okay, and backbreaking to others. But there's that force to change back. I want to dive into that a little bit. I'm gonna write that down. Force to change back, right? Like right now, Biden, former VP Biden making his presidential announcement. He said, the ads have already hit. Not only did he make the announcement, they rolled out the first round of ads for you to become a founding member and go ahead and make those donations. That's one thing you will get. And I guess we don't see it you don't see it if you're not part of a particular party, and you see it too much based on how you have signed up or how you have voted or how you represented or what they could assume your needs to be, right? Or what they are factually, right? So I hear another feedback. So Biden is that force. People want Biden to become that force to change back. So change. There's change, and then there's change back. What kind of change do you want? Ask yourself. That's going to be our note for the day. Every time today you want something to change, I want you to ask yourself, are you the force of change trying to change it back? Like, there are some apps that changed yesterday, and I'm like, oh man, I wish they changed this back. And I am known for that because it messes up your productivity. You got to go back to the drawing board. You got to figure out how things work again and what's going to work best for you. In fact, that was one of the first discussions I got in this morning. We were talking about an app that's been around a while that people have kind of like, use it, don't use it. Some people, it worked for some, it didn't work for others. It works in this, that, and the other. It doesn't work in this. And so there's a force of change with it, or they want to force change of what we believe the app does. And we're looking at it like, no, it's never really done that. But now they're saying that's going to be a focus. But we talked about that the other day, where it's developer time, and apps are saying, hey, listen, here's how we're going to change, and here's how you might want to change, and here's some things that you need to consider. Let me tell you, waking up to staring at this blank page each and every day, some days I can roll with it. Some days I want to turn the page back. I want to change it back to something else. So changes, and there's a lot of things we love to change back. There's a lot of things that keep us under these covers. A lot of things we sweeping under the cover. A lot of things we don't want to deal with as soon as we know. There's a lot that we want to change. And let me tell you, probably the further you go in life, in work, in what you love and what you enjoy, if it feels good, you don't want it to change. And we run around trying to hold it all and keep it all the same. And it's just not going to happen. It doesn't work that way. It's not going to stay that way, if that means anything. Things are going to change. But another thing I noticed on the advocate level, and again, that's where I see it the most, because I just feel bad sometimes for the energy that people have to exert in trying to this tug of war of change. I see it, y'all, and it's like, and you can tell in my voice, I can so clearly see it. Like, say for instance, those that are advocating for the homeless, or those that are advocating for if you're an advocate, definitely that's probably something. Oh, just a minute ago, I was watching television, and it's graduation time. It's graduation time, and graduations this year are affected by this cheating scandal, right? And people don't want to say that they're graduating and they don't want to say the school. And it's like this thing. And I was like, and first, this was an actor that said that. And some of you might have seen it. Some of you might have been watching the episode and so forth. But it's there's gonna be a lot of shade at graduation this year. There's gonna be a lot of shade. Y'all, I'm checking this. I'm wondering if this. I'm like, is it on? I don't know. I see it. It's out there, but there's gonna be a lot of shade. And the dude was like, his daughter was graduating from Harvard. He was like, I'm kind of scared. He said, I'm almost afraid to say because of what's going on. So it's gonna be a lot of shade at graduation, and even around that whole scandal. There's a lot of people that probably wish they could change that. You know, it's about being, I don't know, is it about knowing? Is it about people knowing now? Or is it about, is this an affirmation, confirmation of what people have always thought? Because, we talked yesterday about privilege, and we got into the conversation about the other, I'm always thinking of there's two sides to this thing. And whenever you say privilege, you have to think of liberties. And on the advocate side, there are those who advocate all day, every day, that don't want people to have certain people who utilize their privilege. There's so much energy in taking privilege away from one as opposed to giving liberties to another. That came out of my mouth the other day, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a thought, right? And that's where we are with this change. And I'm like, do you want these presidential candidates? Because those who are giving themselves liberties got in there and won. Those who are showing themselves a whole lot of privilege, won. Shook up the world, right? Because they won, right? Because they want to exercise certain privilege. But the other team actually lost because it didn't want to exercise certain liberties. And that's the way I have to combat this thing. Change is a combative term to me. It's a combative term. At first, it's something that's naturally going to happen. Change happens every day naturally, right? And then that force to keep it from changing, that force to like keep things the same, that force to people not wanting to. It takes them, like they say, it takes more energy to frown than it does to smile. Or does it take more? I don't know. Does it take? I don't know what it take, if it takes more or less, but it just seems that less people are able to do. No, I'm not even going to put that out there. There are more people in everything. There are more people doing the right thing than there are the wrong thing. In the cheating scandal, everybody was like, when you find out that somebody is using some privilege, you go like, dang, I was doing it wrong. When you go into those meetings at work and you say, well, I will come in and I work hard and I do this and I do that and I get nothing for it. And then they go, and what they say, especially if you remember, we talked about yesterday, we talked about doing something for someone. Don't give it your all, because you give it your all and then you say, well, I gave it my all. And then they look at you like you're crazy because they turn right around and tell you they never asked you to do it. They never asked you. And I had a friend keep saying that. And I'm like, this combative term, change. In order to get change in this next election, you got to go to bat. You got to go to combat, right? You got to got foots on the ground, butts in the seats. You got to get the signs out. You got to get that money. Let me tell you, there's no politician going in office without getting a whole bunch of money or convincing people that they got to get that money. I want to keep this one short today because I got to support somebody in something else. But I want us to think about that. This change that you want to happen, you got to start thinking of change as a combative term. You've got to start thinking of yourself in combat. Some of this stuff is actually combat. And when you think about it being combat, there are a lot of people that can't come to the table, won't come to the table. Let me say hello to a couple of people that are coming in that can't come to the table, that won't come to the table because they know that it is combative. Do you think that Trump is not figuring out now, oh, wait a minute. And like Biden taking like so long. And then they kept having the wrong discussion. It's like nobody discusses who their vice president is going to be, but they kept trying to imagine a team and so forth. But change at every level. you've got to start thinking about it as a combative term. There is pretty much zero that has happened in this country on a national, on a local, hyper local, local, regional, national, global, even beyond our walls. There's nothing that has happened truly just because it's the right thing to do. It's all come through combat. It's all come through. I mean, everything that you do in order to exact change, you have to get combative. Whether it's a quiet riot. Remember, I talked about that cooking the spaghetti sauce the other day, and I was like, man, that sauce was a riot. That sauce was a quiet riot. It's like that was my first time. Not my first time making homemade sauce, but that was my first time really seeing the sauce come together because I had to give in to some things. I had to surrender. Okay, I had to stop thinking it could be done another way and go ahead and look at, okay, let me look at these. Let me look at some of these recipes. What do all these recipes have in common? And all the recipes, no matter how much from scratch, how much homemade they were, they still had this one ingredient that I'm like, whoa, I haven't seen. Was that the secret ingredient to everything else? Right? And I'm like, whoa. And it was like paste. It's like a level of paste goes into these sauce, and that's just something you just can't. Nobody has, even though I spend all that time in the kitchen, nobody has that kind of time to make paste. It just, you just don't have time, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put some paste in this, and man, that was like the perfect sauce, perfect consistency. And yeah, I'm like, man, I wish I really could, claim that part, but no. But then who can, right? So, but the sauce, in doing it, I had to surrender. I had to surrender to the one thing that was needed in order to change up all those previous sauces. I'm like, man, all those sauces I have ever made and attempted and tried, they were good because all of the work that I was putting into them, the hard work, I was enjoying my hard work that was going into these sauces, but I still wasn't getting the results. So I had to surrender into the idea of, okay, it needs this ingredient. All down the line, it needs this ingredients, and I'm looking, and I'm like, well, nobody, I'm like the other places, you see the beginning and the end. And I'm like, they're not, they kept leaving out that part, but I kept seeing it everywhere, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try it, and I went and I looked at a couple more recipes, and I'm like, okay, because I mean, you can achieve it. It's just that I don't have time to cook it for. I don't have time to let the sauce cook for a week in order to get to that, or hours. I got to do this within a live stream, and like, oh, there's a shortcut. Okay, I'll try it. I'll try it. And giving in and surrendering to that little bit of change, and going through that riot of making that sauce. I was like, oh wait, this is what happened to sauce. It starts coming out of the pan. It goes everywhere, and once the sauce was done, I looked around the kitchen and there was sauce splattered everywhere. And I'm like, that's familiar, right? I'm like, we've seen that happen. How many times, even at like comedies and cooking disasters, anytime you look at like some of the bloopers and things like that, you see that this, I have a white kitchen, and I'm looking around, I'm looking at the cabinets and the counters, and I'm like, whoa. And I knew the sauce was like splashing, and I'm like, oh my God. So I had to put the lid on it, right? Which I was trying not to put the lid on it because it was just so gorgeous. I just wanted to look at it, and I'm like, whoa, that's part of the process. Put the lid, turn it down, turn it off, keep lowering the heat, and then turn it off, and get that lid on there. So that because what happens is when there's something about, remember I said one of the things I have tremendously learned in going into the kitchen is letting food rest, right? And this is why homemade and from scratch takes all of this. You just don't move through the process as quickly as you think you do. You need to let it rest at varying levels, and especially after cooking. You can't just go with it. You got to let it rest, because once you walk away from it and come back, it makes a change, right? The richness of the sauce is not there the minute you cook it or the minute you turn it off. Once you let it rest and then you come back and it gets to a certain temperature, you give it a stir. Oh my God, it's amazing, right? It's the same thing with ideas. It's the same thing when I jot down a couple of things on these pages and we come back the next day and we look back the day before. Like yesterday, we talked about honesty in past lives. Well, that has a different ring to it today because after we process what we talked about and how to get out of bed yesterday, it has a different ring to it. The same thing with change. You know, you hearing me say that change is a combative term, that it takes change takes combat, and if the first time hearing it, the way in which you currently use those words and phrases, you're probably going to say, oh no, that's not for me. But then when I said think about it throughout the rest of your day, don't act on. I'm not saying go to combat now. I'm saying, hey, the artist coming in. I'm not saying go you do it right now. I'm saying think about it. Take a day. I always tell you, take a minute, take a day, think about what we're saying, see how it applies, right? So throughout the day, think about how many times you say to yourself, man, I wish this would change or I want to change that. Because we do it. We do it, but think about what that change is going to take. Does it change you getting combative? You know, or somebody calling you combative just because you want to bring up the idea of change. How many times does that happen? When you say, well, I want to change this, and they think you just in disagreement. It doesn't mean be in disagreement. It doesn't mean disagree at all. And I think we said that the other day on another podcast. It doesn't mean that we have to agree. In certain situations, there is no agree to disagree. There's only right or wrong. You can't disagree just to be wrong. You can't disagree just because you don't want to seek what's right, right? So we have to, y'all. We gotta figure this thing out because we get to this point when we can't get out of bed where we need too much change in our lives. I'm getting ready to go take on this day. And the things that I need done today, I'm like, whoa, that's going to require a lot of change. Not just some change, not just my changing, right? That's going to require a number of change. Things that even some of the content that I put out this week, it's like, oh man, that went very well. But then when I look at it, I'm looking at it, man, that was a change. There was some differences in that one, and it went well. So what do I have to do? Now I need to go back to the drawing board and change up some of the strategy. But then I'm like, I'm not so totally open to that. But it was so easy. It was so easy to do it the other way. This one takes a little bit more energy, takes a little bit more time, takes a little bit more creativity, takes a little bit more thinking, takes a little bit more processing. It's like, man, that's a hell of a list if I was to write it down. All that I just said, that little bit of change in what I did. And it's so funny because at the beginning of starting this week's cooking episode, I did just a little bit of dialogue, a little bit of monologue in the beginning of it. And that one, and it gave a little bit of the backstory. And that particular one got so many shares because I gave a little bit of the story in it that went along with the recipe, that went along with, like, I gave the why. Here's why you should watch this episode, right? Not only that it's going to be a great meal for you to try, but here's why I'm doing this episode. Here's why I'm here in the kitchen. I gave a little bit of that. And to change, one of the things I needed to combat was the total time of the episodes, right? I'm like, man, they're too long. I need to break them down. So I had to change it. And even though I said I have wanted to do that a number of times, it's harder. It's easier to just push that button, set it and forget it, and then come back and then edit it down and do all the things I wanted to do. But if I wanted that audience on there, you got to change it up. You got to break this up into 3, and even probably less than that, right? You got to not show this part because nobody's really watching that part. You got to get this done. You got to get that. You got to do it this way, right? You got to lighten it up. All of those things was changed for, and not all those things that I absolutely just embrace. Even in talking to myself, I went to war with myself on it because it really all comes down to my decision. And a lot of the change that you see was my decision, right? Even going into combat with myself to say, okay, press stop, do this, go ahead and get that part done. Nobody's watching that part. Nobody wants to see that part anyway, and then come back, reset, and then come back and do another one, and then find out, because there are those who like this part, there are those who like that part, and there are those that just like the finale, right? But understanding, allowing that information in, allowing that information, that change to come forth, it had to happen. What do you have to change? What do you want? There's a difference in what you want to change and what you have to change. And believe it or not, we are going to war with both. Think today, I want you to take today and just think of change as a combative term. That force to change back. Are you resistant? Because resisting it means you don't want it, you really don't want it to change. Or you really don't want to know what's on the other side. You really don't want to be on that other side. You really don't want to have to deal with it, right? And you can ignore it all you want to, but guess what? There will come a day, there will come a time, there will come a moment when it's like right there, smack in your face. All right, I gotta go and support some folks today. I've got to. So you're gonna see a couple things on the timeline today. It being the weekend. I hope everybody's excited about your weekend, man. I know this was a crazy week for some. Coming off, we had some people had a 3-day weekend last weekend because of a holiday. Plus, it was double the holiday. We had Easter, which came late this year. So now it seems like you got less time as we move into spring. It's now time to start thinking about the grads. I always say moms, grads, and dads. Well, now, what is it? Grads, because graduations have moved. Graduations seem to come earlier each year. So now you've got graduation, you've got Mother's Day, and then you've got Father's Day. And that there again, in lies change. All right, so because it used to be moms, grads, and dads, but now, because graduation used to be June? So you had May for Mother's Day, June for graduation, and then in Father's Day. But now graduation seems like it goes on forever. But it's that time. So congratulations in order to everybody that's getting ready for that. I know that's a very special time of year. We love seeing all the pictures and the congratulations come down the timeline. But again, I think a lot of people are feeling it this year because of the whole cheating scandal. And so some people are questioning a lot of the things that are going on with the scandals. So keep an eye on that. That's probably going to take over the news cycle. And I think some people are going to try to have lower profiles this year. So we may or may not see all the graduation stuff. We're also in the midst of the football draft. I didn't get a chance to. I was watching, still binging on Game of Thrones, so I didn't get a chance to. I caught a little bit of it. I love to listen to all my sports stuff on the radio. I grew up with sports on the radio, so I was keeping tabs on. I did see a couple of memes already out there. Some funny stuff is floating around already. So what is this? I got to go and see what the results are. I know the Atlanta Falcons. I'm in Atlanta, outside Atlanta. They had a draft day, so they opened up the stadium and people were down there. So I got to go and see who did we end up with, because Lord knows Falcons need to make a change. They need to make so many changes, and it's just not happening fast enough. As well as a couple of other teams, So, all right, guys, on that note, let's do what we do best. Don't forget, you can drop your phones, pick up your remotes. You can binge on Buzz on your television, as well as some of our friends, which is why I want to jump off of here, because I'm helping some others make that transition and get in their broadcast. So even the how to get out of bed, if you want to just listen to that, put that on your television as well. You can find your app there, each of the platforms that you're on. If you have smart TVs, if you have smart TV players, such as the Fire TV Stick, the Roku, the Chromecast, anything, your game systems, anything that you can download, your social media apps, such as Facebook Watch, YouTube, even Periscope and Twitter have apps that you can use. There's a couple of others as well. Ask your smart device to get you those apps. And meet me on your couch. Lean back. Talk about a way to get out of bed. Get out of bed. Go to the couch. Go to the couch and hang out there for a little bit and make sure that you binge on Buzz. So the three things that we have for you, as you know, is always how to get out of bed, which is a 7-day a week. It's a daily podcast where we talk ourselves how to get out of bed and starting our day. Also, the Facebook page is renamed How to Get Out of Bed. The memoir page that we were going to do is now How to Get Out of Bed. Also, we have DryerBuzz in the City, where I have been a 17-year live blogger in Atlanta. So when there are things going on in Atlanta, there are a number of things happening this weekend that will be out and about. And then also we have In the Kitchen with DryerBuzz, or In the City with DryerBuzz, In the Kitchen with DryerBuzz. I just couldn't call it In the Bed with DryerBuzz. I even get some of the platforms, or even like How to Get Out of Bed, just that whole bed thing. It's like they don't know how to treat the podcast. So imagine if I would have said In the Bed with DryerBuzz. I'm like, oh no, 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 no. So In the City with DryerBuzz, make sure you subscribe to that, different places. And then In the Kitchen with DryerBuzz, subscribe to that in different places as well. Because we know how to meet you where you are. That's why I didn't say go over here, go over there. I just say, hey, listen, lean back and binge on Buzz. All right, guys, y'all have a great day. Go do what we do best, and let's get out of bed.